There was a massive Russian strike before the peace talks in Abu Dhabi this week, now another one following them. This, a warehouse belonging to the Roshen chocolate company in the Kyiv region. The main assault, though, was to the west. Ukraine's air defense is struggling to deal with a wave of 400 drones and 40 missiles. Energy infrastructure, once again, the main target.
The Russians struck, among other things, at facilities on which the operation of nuclear power plants depends. And this is a danger for Ukraine, for our entire region, and for Europe. Today, the units of our Ukrainian nuclear power plants reduced generation. One unit automatically shut down. This is a level of strikes that no terrorist in the world has ever allowed themselves.
President Zelenskyy today briefed by his negotiating team back from 2 days of talks with Russian and US counterparts. He says the US is pushing for an end to the war by June. That follows reports that Washington wants agreement by March and a simultaneous referendum on the deal and a general election in Ukraine in May. In Kyiv, where more than 1,000 buildings have been left without heating by strikes a UN Commission of Inquiry has judged to be war crimes, scepticism both of a timeline for elections that would need a change to the constitution and of Russia's willingness for a deal.
We thought about it, we hoped, but they have been lying since day one, saying one thing and doing another. You can never believe them.
I would not go for any compromises, because compromise leads to nothing. In other words, we must stand our ground.
Renewed suspicion too about the role of Russia's negotiator Kirill Dmitriev, Ukraine's president referring to intelligence suggesting he has presented the US with an economic deal worth $12 trillion. This is the territory that Ukraine insists won't be given up in any such deal between Moscow and Washington. Ukrainian troops training this week in the part of the Donetsk region that Russia has failed so far to capture. Troops here insisting they won't.
We haven't had this kind of weather for years, with snow lying for so long. We're sitting in defence and the enemy is constantly advancing, constantly moving. Naturally, thanks to drones with thermal cameras, it's much easier to detect and destroy them.
Overnight, Ukraine also striking into Russia, saying it had hit a missile fuel production plant and an oil depot. Today, reports in Russia that the Deputy Director of Military Intelligence, General Vladimir Alexeyev, shot in an attack yesterday, was recovering after surgery. 2 suspects would reportedly soon be interrogated. As for the simultaneous diplomatic track, Ukraine confirming it had accepted a US invitation for more talks, likely to be in Miami next week, as the attacks on its infrastructure go on, with temperatures set to fall again in the coming days.
Harry Fawcett there. Well, joining me now from Kyiv is Oleksandra Mereshko, a Ukrainian MP from President Zelensky's party, who is also chair of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, I want to come to the progress of peace talks in a moment, but another set of Russian strikes against your energy infrastructure. What does that mean for how Ukrainians are coping day to day in this brutal weather?
Thank you for having me. Of course, it's a very difficult winter for us. Maybe it's the most difficult winter in our history. I would like to remind that since the start of the full-scale invasion, we didn't have such harsh weather conditions. And of course, for each Ukrainian family, it's very difficult to cope when you have just a couple of hours per day of power, of electricity, and when there is no heating in the houses, in the apartments. So it's difficult. And especially right now when we're going through this difficult period in our history. But no matter what, we're determined to continue to fight, because if we stop fighting, we'll be erased as a nation.
And as Harry Fawcett was saying there, the Ukrainians are also targeting Russian energy infrastructure. So until one side or both sides stops, this keeps going, doesn't it?
Well, the truth is that Ukraine, our army, is targeting legitimate military targets, especially when it comes to Russian war machine. And of course, Putin would like to kill us, especially civilian population, with impunity. But we have to respond somehow. And these deep strikes within Russian territory, they're totally justified from the perspective of international humanitarian law.
But when you look ahead to a peace deal that the US want done and dusted before the start of summer, I mean, how likely is that?
It is unlikely because those ideas which I hear from our American friends, they are delusional. I mean, this idea to hold a referendum, it's absolutely nonsense. It will have no legal effect in Ukrainian legal system. The idea to hold elections during a wartime, it's also absurd. And Ukraine, for example, can never agree to withdrawal of our troops from the rest of the territory of Donetsk region, which is not under Russian occupation. It's impossible from all points of view, legal, moral, political, and also military, because it's a fortified area. If we do it, our defense capabilities will be substantially reduced.
Can I put to you, though, that there is a danger here for Ukraine, isn't there, that the American government have set this deadline? President Zelenskyy sort of alluded to the fact today that the Americans, come summer, will be looking to the midterms. President Trump may lose focus on Ukraine, and that's a problem for you, isn't it?
Well, first of all, Ukraine, our fate, cannot be a hostage to elections in other countries. It's not acceptable for us. It's about our future, about our life. I don't believe that President Trump will walk away on Ukraine, no matter what he says. And luckily, his deadlines are known. He can be very flexible in terms of deadlines.